Despite a tattoo that resembles Nazi iconography in a series of unearthed Reddit posts that disparage cops as well as black and disabled people, Maine Senate candidate Graham Platner appears to be hanging on to a strong lead in the Democratic primary.
Now, the most recent survey of voters comes out of the University of New Hampshire and shows Platner leading his closest Democratic challenger by double digits in the primary. Take a look. Maine uses the ranked choice system, and a whopping 58% of voters who responded said they preferred Platner as their number one choice despite the recent scandals. 24% said they would pick Governor Janet Mills as their first choice. Now, Mills notably is backed by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Meantime, on the Republican side, Senator Susan Collins holds a commanding lead to retake the nomination for her seat, but it's important to note for both, it's still very early in the process. The Maine primary isn't scheduled until June.
A new report from the Daily Caller shows there may be a major disconnect between Platner's self-proclaimed working-class roots and the reality of his upbringing, and that may spell more scandal for the embattled Democratic frontrunner. Take a look. The Caller reports Bronson Platner, Graham's father, is a retired lawyer and has reportedly contributed a whopping $60,000 to Democratic candidates and causes between 2011 and 2024. They also report Platner attended the elite Hotchkiss School in Connecticut, which cost $75,000 per year. All right.
So I think that this is I was actually trying to understand why Democrats aren't saying more or people are still propelling this candidate, Platner, because I actually think he should just go. I looked at some of his messages and, I'm not as forgiving when it comes down to old Reddit posts or tweets. I think you don't accidentally be racist. I feel like that's not something that I can relate to, so I just don't understand it. But some people have more leniency in that regard. But for 18 years to have a tattoo and nobody ever told you that this is, completely offensive, deeply offensive. Even if you went in a tattoo shop in Croatia where maybe somebody had it on their wall just as an option and you picked that one. How idiotic is it and how trustworthy should I believe you to be that you have that on your body and walked around with it and had to get called out by a reporter for the first time pretending like you don't know this? That's not somebody that I would want leading me. Even if people feel like the establishment candidate that's backed by Chuck Schumer is not a good option because nobody wants the same old, that to me is better than somebody who behaves in this manner in a consistent way. We're not talking about one tattoo and a oops. We're talking about, and I know maybe people are surprised. I should be people, I have no, I don't have any leniency for things like this. I also feel like, there's other examples. It's not only because there's a conversation around Democrats always being the worst, and I'm not even leaning into that. I think that the GOP congressman that reportedly had the swastika embedded in the flag in his office, Representative Dave Taylor, Republican from Ohio, that's being looked into right now. They said it possibly could have been a staffer. That person should go. There's a rise in anti-Semitic incidences across the country, right? And I'm not looking to point parties. I'm looking to say that everybody that has racist tendencies, anti-Semitic tendencies, anything, you should go. You should not be in our government. That's not the people that we want leading us forward. We want civilized debate. We want disagreement. We do not want racism. We do not want any of that stuff. So I can firmly say that Platner needs to get out of the race.
All right. I'm going to take an entirely different approach here. I actually do think that the explanation of how he got the tattoo is very plausible. Drunk military guys, they're going out to get tattoos together, stuff happens. But what I thought was odd was he claimed that he didn't know what this was until it was pointed out to him. But then there was a report, a friend of his back in 2012 claimed that he was actually bragging about it and used the official terminology for what it was.
Which is really specific if you don't know.
Very specific. And I didn't know what it was. So the fact that he apparently used that term is interesting. He also has now said that, I have a lot of, abhorrent views from my past that I don't agree with anymore. So it's which one is it? Did you not know what it was, or did you have weird views that you changed your mind on? But I actually think the more interesting part of his background, which was alluded to in the intro with the Daily Caller reporting, is he's really been fashioned as this authentic working class candidate, right? He's this oyster farmer, he's this down home guy, and the reality of his biography spells something very different. His dad was a lawyer who had his own private practice, who ran for a local office, had spent $60,000 trying to elect Democrats, which even if he had given it to Republicans, the point is that's a lot of money
to spend for somebody who's working class.
Yeah, $4,600 a year is no joke for a working class family. His mom owned multiple restaurants around Maine. his grandfather was actually a renowned architect.
You went into the ancestry.com.
Well, I think it matters. I mean, his grandfather literally has a Wikipedia page.
Oh, wow.
Because he was such a famous architect. He had done work on all of these really high-profile concert venues and historic buildings. He worked with IMPay. Like, this guy was a big deal. His parents also, white-collar professions. He goes to this really fancy Connecticut boarding school that costs $75,000 a year. Is only there for a year for some reason, but goes to another private school closer to home that is like $10,000 a year, and then joins the military, and good on him for serving the country. Obviously, no qualms there. Comes back, goes to George Washington University on the GI Bill, and eventually goes on to work for Blackwater, although it wasn't called that at the time. So works as a private contractor, and then finally says, I've had enough with the military stuff, so I'm going to go home and I'm going to start this oyster farm. It's like so random.
And then they start from the oyster farm for his
Yes,
story.
they start from the oyster farm. And the whole thing with the oyster farm is it's like very clearly kind of a hobby. Like, it's not really...
He has the luxury to think
right?
about what
exactly.
I'd like to do with all this money that I have.
His mom basically buys all the oysters for her restaurants, and then he gives tours for people who are coming to Maine as tourists. So it's like all
that's
fake.
Ridiculous.
It's all fake. And so I just look at this and I'm like, this is not like your populist hero. This guy's a total fraud.
And I think with politicians, because I want to be mindful that everyone wants this rags to riches story, or this connection. We know that politicians, they massage the lifestyles, right? We all know that. But that is extreme. I didn't know the extent to the grandma. You went, that's a bit much for somebody who's selling the dream of I'm just like you.
Yeah.
Because I think you can be wealthy and be just like people. I mean, look at President Trump. He never pretended like he wasn't wealthy. And Americans thought he was just like them for some reason. It still baffles me to this day. But they thought, I see you in me. I'm going to go with you twice. And so I think he needs to just lean into what's true and authentic. And also to me, if you can't just lie about things, people could see through that. If you believe the one story and now he's saying, oh, I had these views, but maybe it's what are you sticking to? And if you get into politics, I understand this. I'm not actually a politician. I'm not in politics, right? I talk about it. So I think when you're getting into politics, we both are full aware, probably why we won't ever get into it, that you need to understand what's your story, what's your mission, understand that it's recreational, pull skeletons out of the closet day. So if you want all that to happen to you, then be prepared for all that before you sign up for it, because that is exactly what you're signing up for in today's political climate.
And any good campaign will run a vulnerability study before this person ever steps on the campaign trail so that they can see what their opponents are going to drop on them. So either he didn't do that, which would be completely stupid, or he did do it, he didn't have a very good person do it, and a lot of these things that are now coming out somehow didn't get found, or he did have a good person and he found all of this and they didn't prepare their messaging appropriately for him to be able to defend himself. So all three of those options really don't bode well for his viability as a candidate in the general election. I think it's hilarious too that a lot of these states where Democrats kind of come in and they think they're going to take out this long-serving senator. I think Kentucky's another great example where Amy McGrath tried to run against Mitch McConnell and she was the hero that was going to finally take out Mitch. It's just incredible. Candidate quality is so important in those cases. And Susan Collins and Mitch McConnell have somehow managed to pull some of the worst candidates to run against them. And it's funny too to see MAGA really coalescing around Susan Collins in response to this guy being the top nominee so far for the Democrats. She obviously is not someone who votes.
I was about to say, she's not a MAGA ally, exactly.
But it's Maine, right? So it's okay, this is the best we can get. So we got to hold on to Susan Collins for dear life. She voted to confirm Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. That's our girl.
You know what I admire about the Republican Party? When it's time for lockstep, I mean, they get in line it's sergeant at arms.
I'm glad you feel that way. I don't feel
I feel that way. I'm the way that it's okay, this is the formation everybody get into. I feel it's when it comes down to it. I feel there's a lot of kicking and screaming, for example, to get President Trump to where he's at. Kicking and screaming, people didn't want it to happen again. But when it was time.
Well, they didn't have a choice, though. That was really more of a grassroots movement where I think at a certain point the politicians had no choice.
Yeah. So you think they're still secretly, some people are in there hating right now?
Of course. Absolutely. No question.
Don't let Trump find out.
Oh, I'm sure he knows. We have a lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.